Today I'm going to cover the topic of social emotional learning, sometimes acronized as SEL education. So art, I would argue, every project can be an extension of social emotional learning depending on how you approach it. My approach to art education is definitely tied to social emotional learning topics and allowing students to express what's going on. And sometimes through their artwork, issues arise and we have kind of an understanding of the student on a psychological basis. Now, it's important to remember that we are not therapists, most of us, and that if something comes up that you think is troubling, worrisome, or whatever, if you're working in a public school system, you need to contact the school therapist or whoever it is designated in your school to kind of help that student through that issue. It is always important that we refer or report any issues we suspect. As teachers, we are mandated reporters. So if something comes up that just doesn't feel right, it is important to go ahead and do that. I also let students know that there is a way out of the project. So if we're dealing with an issue that could be focused on death, loss, then maybe they pick a historical figure that they admire who is no longer living with us. And I'll discuss that with some of our projects coming up. But I always make sure that if there is the potential that a student might be uncomfortable with the topic, I give them an opportunity, one or two other things that they can do that are still related, but they give them that chance to kind of defer. Also, I let my students know that they can be as ambiguous as they need to be to feel safe. So if I'm asking them about what does this mean in their project, I let them know it is okay to say this represents something troubling in my life, and you can stop there. So students should feel safe to express what they are most comfortable with you. And as you build, a loving, comforting environment, they will trust you more and more, and you'll be able to get more in-depth kind of work from the students as they dig deeper. So here's a work by a student who is 7 years old, and he's definitely well beyond his years in what he's able to do artistically. And I learned later on that this student was, facing some issues with the mortality of his father. And I'm not sure if this is coinciding with that same time, but it's around there. So there could have been some issues kind of happening in the family, some sort of stress, and maybe the child wasn't able to identify it. It was kind of mysterious. We were doing these sunset silhouettes, and this kind of came through the artwork. So this would be something that this was through a private class, so I contacted mom, and we had a little conversation, and sure enough, the father had an issue, a health issue, and did pass after this time. So sometimes things will just kind of pop up. I use the emotional color wheel as the basis for doing my social emotional learning lessons. And you can see with this God's Eye weaving that I have a poster up there. That's my elementary version of a poster. I also have a high school version of the poster, which helps students understand that colors and shapes can have emotional values, that red tends to be aggressive, yellow tends to be calm but positive, blue is calm but kind of quiet, and green is for growth, and so forth and so forth. So when students are doing even craft type projects, they can choose colors or shapes that have emotional values to them. So let's kind of dive into it. Here is my 9-step unfolding picture. And what I've had students do is tell a story through 9 parts, or they can take a poem that was meaningful to them, and then they do it in this format, and you can see a video of it here, how it unfolds, and it kind of tells a story. So it's a kind of interesting way to do animation, yet still not having to deal with, computer animation. But we can get some really interesting ideas of this, transforming, moving through, issues and concepts. Another one is the altered book. So I have students break it up depending on their age in 4 sections for elementary, high school, it might be 7 sections. And each section is supposed to represent a chapter in their life. And I reserve 1 chapter for their future, like what are they looking forward to. And I tell them we can have major chapters in our life that are both positive and negative, and I'm very open about my own struggles and things that are positive happening in my life. So if I was doing one, I would definitely have a chapter about the passing of my father. I might do another one about achieving my national board certification, the first time that I sold a painting, the first time I left the United States and traveled. So I have students do some pre-writing that's very helpful, and then they try to figure out how they can organize it, and then the book is sort of about them. And then sometimes we decorate the outside, and we play with this idea, never judge a book by its cover. And we do the outside kind of representing how others see them, sort of maybe the stereotypes and stuff. And then the inside is kind of the truth about themselves. Another one is a sculpture project. I have students do a protective creature. It could be a dragon, it could be an angel, like in this case, but they think about something that they're afraid of, and then they create a protective symbol. Sometimes we talk about gargoyles for this, which were supposed to protect buildings from fires because the water gargoyled out of their mouths, made that gargle sound. But here the student was afraid of the dark, so she created an angel that was holding a candle that would kind of light the way. So this is an interesting way to kind of do that, but you could also, some kids don't need to dig deep, being afraid of the dark, that's pretty common. If they're afraid of something else that's a little deeper, then, they can handle it in a more symbolic way. Another one that I do is Piggy Banks, and we do this plaster over cardboard, or you can do it as paper mache as well. The first one is a bank that is supposed to be for them to save up for something they hope to achieve. So if your time right now is difficult, kind of looking to the future, planning for the future can give you hope. So we can talk about that. What are you looking forward to? What are you hoping for? And then we create a bank for that. So as you have little bits of change, you can put it inside. The other one is more for community service. So if you have a particular organization that you think needs more attention, you can make a bank like that and collect donations if you want to. So that's the cancer symbol here. I've done another project called Memorial Bells, and we see the student here with his teardrop-shaped bell. It was done in memory of his father who had passed away recently. So you ring the bell to kind of remember that person, and he spent an awful lot of time on it and had a really great time. And here, designing that out for students is, make a memorial for somebody you admire who has passed, so they don't have to be personal if they don't want to. Or I can give another one where what is an achievement you hope to reach, and then create the bell for that you can ring when you hit your achievement. So then they have 3 ways to go, and those who want to dig deep can, and those who are not comfortable with that or maybe don't have that kind of an experience will have something else to do. In this next one, we have these, I call it comfort critters. So we have a student think about their fear. What is it that unnerves them? What troubles them or worries them? And then they create a stuffed animal that they can keep with them to give them comfort. So his had to be with, he was having some trouble in school with friendship and bullying. So he designed a dog, because that would be a companion, as a comfort creature. So that kind of makes sense. So if somebody is facing some kind of an issue, thinking symbolically what could help comfort you in that, then that could be the stuffed animal for that. In this other one, we've used the stylings of Picasso and kind of Cubism. We crisscross the canvas several times, and then we do a blind self-portrait over top of that. And then they use the colors from the emotional color wheel to paint in how they feel about themselves. So you can see this young man uses lots of oranges. He is a very gregarious person. He's out there. He said, I know some people think I'm annoying, but it's just I have a lot of energy. And then this young lady did hers in hues of blue. So she tends to be more shy, kind of withdrawn, but she's a deep thinker, so she tries to use deep colors that way. Another one in building empathy, I have some projects that are about that so we can understand the struggles of others. So here I try and think of ways that students can understand people who are differently abled. So we created a way to do paintbrushes without using our hands. So we brainstormed some ideas, and each day we did something different. And here you can see we have a headband with a wire that connects to a brush, and they have to use their head and kind of dip the brush into the paint, and they did these self-portraits. And I told them, embrace the ugliness. We're going to have some fun with this. And they really did. Another one for empathy is thinking about hunger in our communities, in our country, and in the world. So students look up a hunger fact, and then out of wire, they create wire food to represent their favorite meal. We bring in a little bit of health department stuff where we talk about what is a balanced meal. And then we put these out around the time of Thanksgiving when there are food drives and stuff like that. So instilling some empathy within our students, I think, is really helpful. Here's another one. I connected with a school district that was from an impoverished area, Title I, with little kids, and many of them would not be having, kind of a Christmas or a holiday gift. So I worked with the teacher in Halloween, and the little kids drew monsters with black pen, and then we sent it to my advanced students in the high school, and we colored them in as professionally as we could and sent them back as gifts. And that teacher created a video and shared it with us, and it was just delightful to see the kids really glow with these gifts that they got back. Another one is chalk painting with the idea of empathy as well. What is the cause? What is something that people need to pay more attention to? So here we have the ribbon on an outside chalk drawing, but you could have everybody kind of take their cause and then go out in the parking lot and kind of get a day outside. This one I call the evil twin. So you're supposed to draw yourself as other people see you, and then draw yourself the hidden part of yourself. What is it you don't always show to other people? So that can be kind of fun. With a similar kind of idea, we do these twin woven portraits. So they're painting themselves with their realistic colors, and then again as their darker selves with expressive colors. And then we weave the two together to create this interesting image. This one focuses on family, and we use the emotional color wheel definitely for this project, where students had to create different shapes and forms to represent each member of their family. So the colors and shapes correspond to their emotional values, how they feel about those people and how they get along. So something that's red and prickly, is somebody who's very aggressive, whereas somebody who's really green is more nurturing. So we've done this as a Calder style mobile, so we get a little engineering involved in there. And then this other one we've done as a watercolor painting. So depending on what materials I have available, we can show the family. It's symbolic. They can talk about how they feel about these relationships, how one shape is close to another and not close to a different one. Lets them kind of express those feelings and still feel safe, because no one can look at the drawing and say, oh, that's your mom, and I see you don't get along, and that kind of thing. They can keep it symbolic and feel good about being able to get that onto paper. And it could be a great conversation if they are, in a therapeutic session. This one we explored Aboriginal art out of Australia, and they had to do another family unit, and we had to do an event that was life-changing for the family. And that could be a move, could be a birth, could be a death. It was up to the students to kind of choose what is it that they would make for their family, and they had to symbolize their family members as animals. And you can see here the lions and the butterflies. The butterflies represent the children, and the butterfly in the middle was a child that was lost during childbirth, and how the family kind of really came together because of that event. Another one, we often do grid portraits. So I encourage my students to pick a grandparent as a subject for their images. So we bring them in, we photograph them, or photocopy them, so that we're not ruining an original photographs that then goes back home. And then this becomes a special gift, particularly if the person has passed away. This can be a wonderful touchstone for the family. And this one was definitely treasured by the family. Here's another one that's kind of a symbolic portrait. So we get two faces in one. You may have seen this done before, where you have a block of wood and you have two arching wires. You create two profiles, and then you put a pantyhose stocking over top of it. You put gesso on it, and then you can create two portraits. So this was the two parts of ourselves. You can see one of them is very calm and quiet, and the other one is very rambunctious and angry. So these are the two different personalities that the student is struggling with. And these it's a plaster head. It's actually a foam form that I got from NASCO. And then we covered these in plaster if they needed to, but actually this was at the end of the school year. So students were able to kind of do what they wanted to it and express something about themselves as an artist. This was after a full year of them kind of gaining trust in me and me trusting in them. So each one of these is very expressive and was supposed to kind of be their final exam. So showing me that they could use color and shape and form to express something unique to them. So the bird in the cage here is kind of that the son puts on a happy face, but he feels like he's kind of controlled by his family as he's trying to get to college. This one was actually by a student who had been in a war zone, gotten out, fled to the United States. So he talked about how he had seen things that no child should ever see. This other one was a student who was LGBT but couldn't come out and express that. But by the end of the year, she was feeling like she was able to tell a few friends. This other one is a student who had ADHD and was on medication, and he really struggled. And he really had a hard time all through the year to finish up his projects and get it done. And I said, well, and he was stuck for, what do I do? And I say, well, do that, talk about your struggle through your work. And he's like, I can do that. And I said, the wilder it is, the better, because that will help express what it is you're trying to do here. And then this last one is from a young man whose sister had to leave high school because she was pregnant. So that's the baby inside. The pink blanket is kind of representing that the family is taking care of the baby, and the scratches represent that it was really a painful experience for the family. So though there's this wonderful new life, there is also the struggle that would happen to another child. So that it really comes through in that. This next one I call the inside-outside box. And the idea is the outside of the box is decorated how others see you and what you're trying to put out there, to other people. And then the inside is kind of what's really going on. So again, this is kind of like the head sculpture towards the end of the semester when students are comfortable, and then they're able to do that. So you can see peeking through the word alone. So the student, though he was very gregarious and, really out there and fairly popular, he felt inside that he was kind of alone and wasn't really connecting with people. Another good one is, find a famous quote that inspires you, that gives you hope, and then illustrate that quote, giving credit to the author. And then I do have students research the person who said the quote, and we put those two things together when we put it on display. This other one is based on light. I call it a light sculpture. So students are given just a cord with a little chandelier light, and I make sure it's, a real low wattage, so it's not going to melt anything or burn anything, and they have to sculpt light. And this student did it through, the holes in this box, but we had hundreds of other, kind of ideas come through. So students they had the bulb, they had the cord, and then they had to figure out how could they manipulate light to express their inner light or to express their fears. So you see the box there has kind of a skull on it, but then, so that's kind of the danger. They're worried about graduating and they're worried about what's going to happen. But the light in the background are shapes that are shapes of hope. So that can be an interesting way to be expressive. This next one is a mask. And instead of doing masks to conceal, I do a project where masks reveal. So they reveal parts of your personality. So it's up to students, again, on their comfort level to express what they feel like, what's inside that they feel like they can't say and get out there. So the mask can be a way to kind of speak for them. And they can use the emotional color wheel for the colors and shapes that have the emotional values, or this student did some symbols with nature, kind of showing their own love of nature and what they wanted to do as a career path. But they didn't think it was cool, so they weren't really sharing it with their friends. This other one is a different kind of memorial. We did the clay one before. This one is a plaster over cardboard and foil. So we have a piano here with a bird on top, and this was memorializing a grandmother who taught her granddaughter piano, and as they would sit at the piano and play, there was a bird's nest outside the window, and they watched as the bird came, built a nest, laid some eggs, and then the birds left, and then the grandmother had passed away. And that was kind of a deep memory for her. Here are some other memorials. And, though some of them are unusual, the symbols that the students used are very specific to their situation. And again, the students will have an out. They can memorialize somebody that they admire who is no longer living if they don't want to deal with somebody in their own life, or perhaps they haven't experienced that yet, and that's fine as well. Here's another one that's based on a song. So we talk about different songs that they feel uplift them. When you're feeling down, feeling bad, what is the song that lifts you back up? So here we can see the lyrics are written within the waves. So I tell them that the important thing is to incorporate the writing within the image, that we don't want it two separate things like an image and a bubble off to the side. We want to incorporate it so that the writing is just as important as the image. And I feel like this is a really powerful one. You get that sense that the student is kind of struggling and drowning, but the water, the words in the water are sort of uplifting and kind of showing them some hope. This other one, we see a silhouette of a face, and the inside and outside are representing, the outside is how they see the world or how the world sees them, and then the inside is about themselves and their own struggles. So you could see in this next image is the student's writing that goes on the back of that. They explain what the symbols actually mean. And then I'm going to show you two others that you can see, very expressive works of art and very different. You can see that each one is extremely unique. And again, they use that emotional color wheel to come up with a language to work symbolically. This next one is a close-up of a self-portrait where the students write about themselves, almost like a diary for the lines that go around the face. So instead of using lines that way, they're using the words to kind of express who they are and the things that they're going through. And then again, on the back, they can do some additional writing if what's clear is not clear enough on the front. This is a common one where we do sunsets or moon silhouettes. They're very kind of kitschy but fun, and it's good for teaching blending, whether it's monochromatic or polychromatic. But here we have the tree in the middle of the valley and a moon is up top. So they learned about their color blending, but their choice of tree, their symbols of mountains are then explained in this writing that the student did afterwards. And here's another one with a moon. They were supposed to draw the moon, and then we had tree branches, kind of coming in, and hidden within the tree branches as we kind of explore surrealism are actually symbols to represent different parts of their lives, either their struggles, their triumphs, or things that they felt were important to them. And then again, they had to do some writing to tie that in together. This next one is a tree, and the idea is growing from now into the future. So they have to pick a symbol that represents the now, something concrete that they can actually bring in. And then we do these wire bonsai trees. We study about bonsai and what the different shapes sort of mean. And they do these wire twisting. And then they need to think about the leaves. What are the leaves going to represent of where you're going to? So we have the book, which is the now and all of the study. And then the leaves for this student was representing that they wanted to be a writer. And if you actually turn the tree and look at it, there are different words kind of hidden within the branches. So that has an expressive message to it. The last image I'm leaving you here with is just, getting your students out of their current environment. Sometimes the school may not be helping them flourish, all the time. Sometimes we need a change of scenery. And if you can afford to or can take kids outside and go to a park and just kind of change the setting a little bit, you can see that they will make more connections. So though we're doing all of these social emotional projects here that we're kind of talking about, sometimes just getting outside of yourself can be therapeutic and just a great way to break the ice. And as students are working, you can kind of walk around and connect to students one-on-one to, again, build trust. So changing your location can also be helpful. So if you found any of this helpful, I'd hope that you could like and subscribe to my videos. Check out the others in this playlist. If you're interested in the emotional color wheel, I will have a link below where you can get copies of that on Amazon. So thank you very much, and you have a great day.